right, it's that time, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Um, in this session, we're going to dive into what it really means to form a childcare employer partnership. Okay, you may already have an idea in your mind. You might have attended some of the and gotten some of this information before, but a lot of times people will picture, this big company running its own on-site little family childcare, or you might have an employer paying for all of the family's childcare costs. That can definitely be one of the models, but what we're going to talk about today and what we're going to explore is that partnerships come in a lot of different ways. And, it's really, really easy so that you can maybe find one that fits your needs and that can help you. So again, hello, and thank you for joining us today for Building Employer Partnerships. I am Melinda Escobar. I am an associate with Civitas Strategies. I do also have Vanessa Luman, who is also here, and she will be hosting the Spanish session on Wednesday, right, Vanessa? Wednesday, same time at noon for us. And so she's going to help me on support today, and then I will help her on support on Wednesday. So where this session is really specifically designed to explore how forming the childcare partnership, employer partnership can help you grow your business, how it'll increase enrollment, and then achieve your long-term sustainability. That's what we really want you to do, is be able to do this so you can stay in business forever. Okay. So before we go into the content, I'd love to get to know who signed in today. As you can see on the screen, please take a moment to introduce yourself in the chat. Share your name and your hometown. This will help us build a sense of community as we go through the journey, okay? On the next hour, we're going to explore partnerships, and I want to encourage you to keep your chat open because we'll have several polls that we're going to use and questions throughout the presentation to help things be interactive and make sure that this is also valuable to you. I'm going to share a little story that happened. This really, really happened to me, and you probably heard it if you've ever been in any of my sessions. I walked into a restaurant one day, like it sounds like a joke, right? I walked into a restaurant one day, and I noticed that, this is real. Went into a restaurant, there was there was a few children sitting at a table by themselves, and the children were coloring, they were doing their thing. And one of the servers would occasionally pass to remind them to settle down. So, me being the teacher type, I went to the kids and they said that the server was their mom, that she had to bring them to work because they had nowhere else to go after school. So this is what struck me, that the restaurant owner obviously cared about the employee, right? To let her bring her children to the restaurant and give them that table, right? So they were allowing the children to wait there during their mom's shift. But if that owner knew about a local family childcare provider who could offer, a real solution, so maybe they would have taken advantage of that. So this moment really opened my eyes to how employer partnership opportunities are all around us. So when you see working parents struggling with childcare gaps, that's your opening. Approach those businesses. You can propose a referral arrangement or create partnerships that solves the employee's real problems and the employer's problems. So when you help businesses support their working parents, everyone wins because the employer gets more focused employees, parents get quality care with you all, and then you gain those new enrollments. So that's what we're going to talk about over the next hour. We're going to explore exactly how you can identify and build these kinds of partnerships in your own community, turning everyday observations into valuable business opportunities for your family child care. Okay? All right. So I do need to read the disclaimer. This project is supported by the Administration for Children and Families, ACF, of the United States Department of Health and Human Services as part of a financial assistance award totaling $4,744,762, with 100% funded by ACF and HHS. The information contained here has been prepared by Civitas Strategies and is not intended to constitute legal, tax, or financial advice. The Civic Health Strategies team has used reasonable efforts in collecting, preparing, and providing this information, but does not guarantee its accuracy, completeness, adequacy, or currency. The publication and distribution of this information are not intended to create, and receipt does not constitute an attorney-client or any other advisory relationship. Reproduction of this information and recording of this content, including the use of AI, are expressly prohibited. Only non-commercial uses of this work are permitted. Okay. All right, so like I said, over the session, we're going to cover the benefits that these partnerships can bring to families, childcare providers, and employers alike. The range of partnership models from simple, no-cost arrangements to full employer subsidied care. So how do we identify and reach out to potential employers in your community? That's what we're going to look at. And what does it take to plan and structure agreements that are sustainable and mutually beneficial? The key idea that we're going to come back to as we go through this is that partnerships are flexible, okay? They can be what you want them to be. They don't have to be huge. They don't have to be complicated. They don't have to be expensive to make an impact. They just need to be designed in a way that helps both the childcare business and the employer succeed. And that is what, in turn, supports families and communities. Okay, so by the end of this training, you'll have some concrete examples, maybe some tools and ideas that you could adapt to your own situation, whether you're just starting to think about a partnership or you're ready to grow into it. Okay, the reality of partnerships is that partnerships can take many forms. Many people imagine employer subsidy on site, when they hear a child care employer partnership. For me, one example might be like back in the day when I worked for the YMCA, at the school district, they had a partnership. So the YMCA would provide after school care in the school cafeteria, right? So that would be an example. That's what most people think. But in reality, partnerships can be any agreement that benefits both the provider and the employer. So you might think of a referral program with small perks, reserve slots for priority wait list. Okay, so maybe you have a company that if their employees come to you, they're going to get, first dibs on the slots. Okay, or even shared cost or fully subsidized tuition, which might mean, the employer will pay for the care or partial payment of the care. Okay, the key here is that it's mutually beneficial. It's a solution that helps both people or both groups that meet, it's going to meet the employer's needs because they're going to get their worker there, and the worker is going to be focused on the work, and it strengthens the childcare business. It's going to help your business grow. Okay, so employer partnerships represent one of the most effective marketing approaches for family childcare networks, regardless of the size. Successful providers, that use this have built relationships with local businesses. You might think of plumbers, fast food chains, retail stores, and then, community organizations like churches and civic groups, okay? So these partnerships, they create mutual value. Employers gain access to reliable childcare solutions for the workforce, while providers receive that steady referral, increased visibility in their communities, those enrollments, all of that comes from that, okay? The critical message here is that family childcares should never consider themselves too small to pursue these opportunities, okay? Even a single provider or a small network can approach local businesses with a professional proposal saying, we're highlighting how quality childcare supports employee retention and how it helps with productivity. Start small with nearby businesses if you're not sure, but then you can leverage your, the existing community connections, and then let early successes build momentum, because those little wins, they're going to let everybody else know, hey, this is a quality childcare. We've built a good relationship. You can trust them. Okay. All right, so the other thing about this is that, when we say, why consider an employer partnership? Why do I want to partner with this particular company? One, it's new money, it's new income stream. It's a new form of revenue, okay? Employer contracts bring in revenue separate from family paid tuition or state programs, right? So you have your subsidy, you have your parents that are paying in, but now, if you think about it, it's like its own little subsidy. They're going to help you, or they're going to help their families, their workers pay for that care. Could be, right? It's also risk reduction. Okay. If you have somebody paying, then they help balance that impact of the fluctuating enrollment or loss of temporary funding. That's going to be that steady check. As long as the worker is coming to work and are going to work, you know that that money's going to come in. Um, Predictable contracts. Okay. Agreements with the employers often provide a set number of slots or referrals, and that's going to smooth out your monthly cash flow. Again, that money's going to come in, you know it's going to be there for you to have on hand. And then, not just that, but the financial resilience of it all is that you want to make sure that you don't put all your eggs in one basket, that you're diversifying your income, and that's going to help to reduce dependence on any single funding source. So you don't want to just put it all on your private pays or your subsidy. Now you have, your money spread out. And that's what we call diversification of revenue. Okay, so when considering a business partnership, it's really important to understand and communicate the benefits that the employer is going to have. Okay. First, employers who offer childcare benefits to their employees report increased employee retention and loyalty, right? The employers like that because they're going to keep their staff. The staff appreciate the fact that they're doing this. It also improves productivity. The staff are not worried about if their child is okay. They're not having to stop off at the table and check on them. They're focused on their work. So that's going to improve productivity. And a better workplace, it gives them a better workplace environment, right? All the staff are working, they're doing their jobs, right? So everybody's going to be happy. Employer doesn't have to get after the employee for not focusing, right? So all of that leads to reduced expenses in employee absences. So the employee isn't calling in all the time because she doesn't have anywhere to leave her kids. And that also reduces turnover. And for the business, it brings higher profits due to that increased productivity. So if you think about that table that was being used for the children to sit there, that table is now going to get rotating customers, right? For those 4 or 5 hours that those children were there, they weren't making money off that table. Now the kids are gone. Now they can have paying customers. Okay. So further, businesses may be eligible. Okay. So this is also another little incentive for businesses. They might get a tax break if they invest in childcare for their employees. So there's the employer provided childcare facilities and service credit. Okay. So that offers a refund of up to 25% of childcare expenses at tax season, plus 10% of research and referral expenses. And that maxes out an annual credit of $150,000. Okay. So, no, I'm not the tax person. Okay. I'm just giving you that information. If you would like some more information on that, or if you want to figure out how that will work for you and your business or your partnership, let us know before the end of the session so that and Vanessa and I can hook you up with one of our tax expert coaches. Okay. They're the ones that have all of the good information. Okay. So if you want to know more, just let us know, put it in the chat. You can put tax coach and your name and we will set you up. Okay. Again, those are free. It's just like regular coaching, but they will help you specifically with your business. Okay. And I cannot emphasize enough how important it is to take advantage of the free coaching. Okay. Now, employers who partner with you may be eligible to claim this credit for expenses that their company incurs to provide childcare services to their employees, either on-site or in contract with your childcare business, as well as for the expenses they incur to help them find childcare. So if you put that in in the benefits and say, hey, listen, this is how it could help you, the owners are going to be like, ding, 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 really? I can get a tax credit? Let me sign up for this. And then, that's where you can really get their attention. Okay. Thank you, Shawana. We'll make sure to get you listed with a coach. Okay. All right. We have our first poll. And so Vanessa is going to pull up our poll and she's going to do that one. And I said Shawania, right? If that's how you pronounce it? Yep. Yes. Okay. 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 So, did the poll up? Did it come up? I'm not seeing it.
Um, I don't know. Let me try it again. Sorry.
I can try to pull it up.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's thrown me to the results.
Oh,
Linda.
yeah. Let me relaunch it. Hold on.
Okay.
There you go. Now y'all can answer, I think.
Thank you.
No problem. Yeah, go to the three dots and push relaunch since you tested it earlier. It'll do
Okay.
it. Okay, so I'm seeing A, reliable and consistent care, right? So what do you think is the biggest benefit of child care employer partner? That exactly, right? I mean, all of those are important, but for you, if you're seeing that, hey, I think this is the caregiver part of us, right? This is what we're good at. We're good at making sure that kids are safe. We're going to be there for them, right? So that's going to be very important. Okay, so we'll talk some about that. Thank you for answering that poll. All right, so um, what are the benefits? Okay, somebody put proximity to the work. That's also, we're going to talk about that too. Being in the air. It doesn't make sense for you to be on the other side of town, right? But there, that is also a big one, right? So benefits for working families. These are the things that you want to make sure they understand and that you understand. Somebody just put it, proximity. That needs to be easy for the staff person, like, hey, it's on the way. I'm going to drop off my child on the way to work, right? Um, Care near the workplace saves times and it also helps to reduce that stress. Not just that, but if the parent or there's an emergency, the parent doesn't have to traverse across the city just to get you. It's faster, right? Reliability, stable, consistent care that helps to get the family in a routine. So, routines are always good. We know for the kids, but also for us, right? The peace of mind. If parents are looking at are focused on their work, they know that there's, like we said, there's going to be more productivity. They're not be worried about, is my kid okay? Is he, some parents leave their kids at home because they don't have care, right? So and it's always like a worry, are they okay? They don't have to worry about those things that they know they're with you. Okay. The work-life balance. Okay. Fewer disruptions, that supports healthier routines. Having to leave work or for emergencies, all of those things. Now, in the community, what families are going to see that the local businesses value their needs, so everybody say, I want to work for a place where they see that I need that help and they're going to help us. So that builds the community support. And then when the children are in a secure play of loving childcare home, they're liable to stay there long term. That's stable. That gives some consistency for the children. We talk about the continuity of care, just to make sure that children they see your face every week. They know that Ms. Verjica is gonna be there for me, or Miss Shamwania is gonna be there for me. I get to see her every day. She's gonna take care of me. I don't have to worry. The parents feel comfortable with that. They trust you. They know that you're going to care for their children. Okay. All right. Now we're going to talk about, okay, what does it look like to do these partnerships? Okay. Well, there's the formal agreements, that you create between your business, your family childcare, and local companies to provide childcare benefits for the company's workers. Okay. Companies can refer their employees directly to you for enrollment, or your childcare can offer special rates or priority enrollment to partner company employees, right? So, some of the ones that I've heard, like in the Austin area, or near Round Rock and everything, where Tesla is, right? So, some of those, like here in San Antonio, we have the Toyota factory, this Toyota company that's, in on the south side of San Antonio. So would you believe that area was all just rural? It was like trees and grass. And now there's like all these little businesses that have started up. And probably like where I grew up in that area. I'm serious. Like there's so many little childcare centers popping up. So that the need is there. And not so, childcare centers, but you all as family childcare, the neighborhoods are starting up. So families and, you can have your family childcare in those neighborhoods as well. So that's a big one. Okay. Um, the partners can include any size business from small offices to large corporations, right? We talked about that. A little restaurant, or Tesla. Okay. They come in all sizes. So the goal is to fill more spots consistently and create a steady income for your childcare in a way that benefits the employers and yourself. Okay. So what we've seen time and again is that people assume partnerships have to involve like big discounts or major funding to really matter. But in reality, what families really want and what they value most is the quick and easy access to childcare. Okay. So I'm going to give you two stories, and these are real stories that we've shared. A childcare business owner has a parent coming in asking if there were any openings. Unfortunately, the provider has no spots available at the time, but they've been considering expanding. The parent explained that without childcare, she would have to turn down a job offer from a nearby business. Okay. So, the light bulb went off. It sparked an idea. The provider went to that local employer and explained the situation. It turned out that the business was also struggling, okay, because they were having a hard time keeping employees because there were so few childcare options in the area and the community. So together they crafted a partnership. As the provider expanded, the employer committed to helping fill those new spots. So this created a steady stream of enrollment for the provider, and it gave the employer a powerful retention tool. I'm working with this childcare. If you want to come work, oh, you need childcare? Great. I work with Miss Shawanya over here. She can take care of your baby, right? And I'm picking on Radhika and Shawanya because they're in my screen. So don't think I'm just let me slide my screen over so that I can look at other people. Okay. Oh, I didn't know Heidi was in here. Heidi. Heidi knows all about this stuff too. Okay. Um, so this example really shows how a single conversation, starting with just the parent's needs, it led to a partnership that benefits everyone. Okay. Another real example, a provider went to a local chain business and asked about forming a partnership. Just took it upon herself to go there. They agreed on something very simple. Employees' families would have the registration fee waived. That's it. If you send me some people, I'll waive the registration fee. Within the first week, the provider had 3 new families sign up, and they were really shocked by how fast it worked. Okay, this story shows that partnerships don't always have to be big, expensive, or complicated. Even a small, no-cost play like waiving a registration fee can make a really big difference for families, for employers, and then of course you, right? So in our experience supporting, how we've helped 600 partnerships across the state of Texas, providers are often shocked at how powerful the littlest of steps can be. Something as simple as waiving a registration fee or offering priority on a wait list, that has brought families in almost immediately. So we've even have had providers tell us, um, this was the best marketing experience that they'd had in 20 to 30 years of running their business. And so that shows how impactful these small moves can be. So, while we talk about big plays like full subsidy, subsidized care or on-site programs, those can be transformative big changes. But it's important to remember that the small plays work too. They're often the easiest, fastest way to start building your momentum. And sometimes we're afraid to take those steps, but they can be really valuable. Um, okay. Um, Again, partnerships can really vary from super simple arrangements to full subsidized employer models and everything in between. What matters most is recognizing the value on both sides of the agreement and then just kind of finding what works best for you and your situation. Okay. Um, going to Tesla and you think, oh, I've got to do this major agreement. No, and then you think, well, if somebody's already doing this, why would I do it? One provider that I know of just went and got her flyer put in the break room, in the where the employees go and take their breaks. Now you say, well, why I can't put mine because there's another one. No, they have hundreds, thousands of employees, and if she's a family child care provider, she can only take so many. There's, you're not in competition, you're really helping each other out. It doesn't mean that you can't do the same. Okay. All right. So at the end of the day, no matter what model you're looking at, whether it's low or no cost arrangement, a shared cost model or fully subsidized program, the heart of every partnership is that it mutually benefits the both of you. Okay. It's beneficial for both. For childcare businesses, partnerships mean stable or increased enrollment, reliable revenue streams, and often new opportunities to expand and grow. For the employers, partnerships bring real workforce value, stronger staff recruitment and retention. They're going to have reduced absenteeism and turnover costs, and overall improved morale and productivity among employees. Imagine that employee saying, wow, my employer really cares that they're offering, childcare, paying for my childcare as a benefit to me. That really helps me out. The very best partnerships are the ones where both sides are seeing very clearly the value and where they can commit to working together for the long-term success. So the key message to remember here, right, is that the specific form of the partnership can vary. It's going to be different for everyone, but its strengths comes from being beneficial to both the provider and the employer, and then ultimately the families that they're going to serve. Okay. All right, so here's where we're going to start to point out the easiest entry point, because it doesn't, again, require the employer to provide a financial subsidy. Okay. The no cost or low cost model. We're going to look at models now. Even without money changing hands between the childcare business and the employer, these partnerships can still deliver real value to both families and employers. For example, an employer might agree to recommend your program to the staff, and in return, you could waive the registration fee. You might also offer reserved slots for employees' children or give them priority on your wait list. Okay. From the employer's perspective, these are visible benefits that they can promote to their staff at no or very low cost. Okay. For families, it provides access and sense of support from their workplace. And then for you as a provider, it helps increase enrollment stability and visibility, in the community. Okay. The takeaway here, partnerships don't have to be big or expensive to be meaningful. Even those simple, flexible arrangements like this can strengthen your childcare business while helping employers support the staff. As a provider, you also need to balance what you offer. If you're going to offer waived fees or reserved slots, you want to make sure that you're not overcommitting on your capacity, right? Because the business, oh, I'm going to send them all to the childcare and you only have 12 slots. And they have hundreds of employees. You see, that could put you over, especially if you're committed in a sense, or you made a promise. These partnerships tend to work best when the employer has limited budget. Families really value that guaranteed access, and the provider is building trust with the new partner. So think of it as a starting point, a foundation that you can build on over time. The next one we're going to talk about is the shared cost model. So it is a setup from low or no cost partnerships. In this arrangement, both the employer and the family contribute to the cost of the childcare tuition. So the employer might cover a flat rate per child or a percentage of the tuition. Families then pay the remainder, which makes care more affordable for them without requiring the employer to take on the entire cost. The benefits for this one are really significant in the sense that families receive more affordable childcare. Employers can offer a meaningful benefit without covering the full cost. And you, as a provider, you see more predictable tuition revenue coming in. You know that the employer is going to pay their part, so that's a constant. The shared cost is often the sweet spot for employers who want to provide real value to their staff, while keeping the investment manageable. They don't, it's still not going to overdo them on their budgets and stuff like that. Okay. The next partnership that we talk about is the employer subsidized partnership. This one is where the largest financial and administrative investment is going to be on the employer. Okay. They often involve long-term contracts, and if childcare is provided on-site or near site, an additional facility consideration, such as space, licensing, and ongoing maintenance. Now, again, you as a family child care provider, you can, you're offering it in your home. But in these cases, it's most likely like they have this large room in their business and the kids are going to be there. So if you want to expand and you want to do something like that, that could be, a way to go. Okay. Now, the return on that investment can be very strong. This model delivers the highest impact on staff retention and recruitment because the kids are there with the parents on site. But with that, employers are naturally going to have higher expectations for provider performance and consistency. And I've managed programs like that where we send staff to a site and they work on site. And it was a lot to manage and make sure that everything was met, because the facility is going to have certain rules and things that they cannot do. Can't have the kids running into the main part of a workstation or something like that. So all of those things you have to make sure you're keeping in check, right? um, Now these partnerships are going to work best with an employer who's facing major workforce shortages, or they have a really high turnover and turnover costs. And so they're going to be motivated to invest in that lasting solution. On the provider side, what it's going to do is it requires being ready to expand. Okay, this is a growth opportunity. So you're going to be either expanding your capacity or managing larger, more complex operations. So um, critically, both parties have to be prepared to enter into a formal agreement and sustain collaborations. Okay, so while this is the most ambitious model, it can also be the most transformative, both for you as a childcare business and for the employer's ability to stabilize their workforce. Okay, so when we talk about on-site and near-site care, the big idea is the same. Both models bring childcare closer to where employees work. In an on-site model, the childcare program is located directly inside the employer's facility. That might be a dedicated classroom, a wing of the building, or even a full family childcare within the workplace. Okay. If it's an in or a near site model, that program is located close by. And this could be an existing provider site down the street, your home if you live down the street, in a new location set up near the workplace, but it's not inside the employer's building. Okay. But it is designed to be very convenient for employees. Either way, both approaches require, a lot of planning, thoughtful planning, collaboration, and you have to have a clear agreement between the provider and the employer. And both can deliver powerful results. They help the provider stabilize enrollment while helping employers recruit and retain staff. Okay, so these are often considered the most ambitious types of partnerships, but they can also create some of the most impactful long-term solutions. Okay, so we've mentioned three different ways employers partnerships can work. Okay, from simple reserve slots to employer subsidized programs. Not every model is going to fit every business. Okay, the right option depends on your size, the staffing, and how much risk or complexity you're ready to manage. It also depends on the employers in your community. A small clinic may be a great fit for reserve slots, while you have a large hospital system that might be interested in a shared cost or full subsidy. Okay, the important thing is that you don't have to start with the biggest model. You can begin small, test a partnership, give it a go, see how it works, and then you can also grow it step by step as your trust builds within the partnership. Okay, so which model feels most achievable for you in the next month, and which one feels like a long-term growth opportunity? Okay, so which partnership model feels most achievable right now if you were to look at it? There we go. Whoop, the low cost, they see that one. Seeing the low cost, no cost. The majority of our low cost or no cost. It's really simple, really easy, right? It doesn't cost anybody anything to go there, to talk to an employer, to see, and you can start there. And once you do that, you can always build onto a shared cost with an employer. Start talking to them when they start to see the real value of having this partnership, then it can definitely grow into more, right? And then if you get the hang of it and you say like, hey, I can really do this, then you can take it to the next level, right? Then you can take it to, full on employee subsidized. Starlet, you have a question? on it?
Yeah, I've been wanting to do this for so long, but I feel so nervous. Like, what is like a script to even present a shared cost with employers? Because I have tons of franchises. I'm in Harker Heights,
Mhm,
big franchises near me like HEB and Walmart and the post
mhm.
office. I have lots, but it's just asking for that shared cost. Like, is there like a specific script we could like create
Actually,
on
I
our
did. Yeah, we're gonna actually talk about some of the ways
Oh,
to
okay,
start.
okay, okay, okay. Good.
Yep, sure, for
I'll be
sure.
quiet and wait.
No, no, it's okay. Yeah, no, no, not a problem. We're actually gonna because that is a genuine like, wait, okay, I want to do this, but where do I start? Right? So, yeah, we're gonna talk about that right here in a little bit. Definitely. Okay. So, when you're starting to think about it, which some Starlight already is, like, I think I can do this. So the best place to start is when you already know. You know your families, your employers, and so you ask yourself where the parents you serve work. Those employers already have connection to your program through the families you serve. So next, you're going to look around nearby businesses. So, Starlight, you've already kind of given us the idea. Who are the major employers in your area? Who's close enough that their staff would see the value in childcare that's nearby? Then you want to pay attention to the industries that are struggling with hiring and retention. Fields like healthcare, education, retail. Can you really, you think education, oh, teachers, they know how to take care of kids. No, teachers go to school, they do, but they still need somewhere to put their kids, right? They can't take them to their school. So, education, even teachers need childcare. Okay. And I've heard of several providers that just work with school districts with a certain school down the street. Okay. So that's where partnerships can make the real difference for the employee, for the staff, or for the employer, for the staff, and for you as a provider. The key here again is that you don't have to look far or reinvent the wheel. You start by connecting the dots between the families you serve, the businesses around you, and also the industries. Okay. So, so we've identified, we're talking about where families work. You want to ask families if you need to. And then there's an important signal because it means that the employers were already experiencing the impact of childcare on their workforce. So they're seeing how challenges with childcare affect their attendance, punctuality, even employee retention. So approaching an employer where you already serve multiple families can give you a strong entry point. You can show them real examples of how supporting childcare would directly benefit the staff. That is going to help you move that conversation from an idea that you have to a solution. Okay. Um, Again, another way to identify strong partnership opportunities is by looking at the industries that are struggling the most with recruitment and retention. These employers are often the most motivated to explore childcare partnerships because they know it's a key factor in keeping staff. Um, these high need sectors are going to include, these are just the places, healthcare, hospitals or skilled care facilities where staffing shortages are common, education, I just mentioned schools, universities, where childcare challenges can really impact the teachers and the staff. Students who are also parents. We actually had a partnership with one of the former nonprofits that I worked for with teen moms, that we took care of their children while they were finishing high school. Okay. Manufacturing and factories, which often run shifts scheduled that make childcare access critical. So here again, you're going to start looking at some other ways some other avenues as well for you all. So like doing non-traditional hours. Okay, so if you're not doing non-traditional hours or you want to take care of infants and you're not right now, we have 2 tracks that are offered that you can sign up to learn more about, which is non-traditional hours and adding infant and toddler care. So if you haven't taken those 2 tracks and you want to start a partnership, but those might be some of the things that the employers are looking for, like if they're overnight factories and you see a real possibility of enrolling children overnight and it's something that you're interested, before you try to explore that partnership, you can always take that track, non-traditional hours, and then say you want to take care of teen moms, infants while they're in school, but you don't know if you can do that, then take adding infant and toddler care as the micro-learning track. Those are 2 that you can sign up for. And again, if you want us to sign you up, if you haven't been signed up for those, let us know, put it in the chat, and we can recommend that you get signed up for those sessions immediately. Okay. Retail, hospitality, restaurants, right? Retail stores, agricultural industries with high turnover. And when you approach employers in these sectors, you're not just offering a nice to have benefit. You're actually presenting a business solution to one of the most pressing factors, right? One of their most problems. Okay. So here we start going into their third poll. What do you feel might be the best way for your business to start finding employee partners? Okay. Ask current families where they work, reach out to nearby businesses, target industries with high turnover. Okay. And we're getting all 3 of them, right? Okay. And I really like the fact that we're getting a little bit of each one. Okay. Because the reason that it's good that we know this is because this is you. This is like, what do you feel like you can handle? So if you feel going into an industry with high turnover, that school nearby or that restaurant, or just talking to the families at work that already have kids, or maybe they know some families, right? All of these will count. Okay. All right. So here's what we're going to talk about it. Reaching out to the employers. Okay. Here you go, Starlet. This is where it's going to start. Okay. Partnerships almost always begin with outreach, so it's important to remember that you shouldn't wait for employers to come to you. In many cases, they may not even realize the kind of partnership that it's an option, okay, until you introduce the idea. Okay, so the most effective approaches are usually the simplest and most direct. This could be a phone call, a brief meeting, a conversation at a community event. You don't need to have a really big presentation to get started. Okay. The goal at this stage is clearly show how childcare needs and the workforce needs to be aligned. Employers are motivated by challenges like staff turnover, absenteeism, and retention. So by connecting childcare solutions directly to the business concerns, you position yourself already as a partner that has the problem, the real solution to the problem. Okay. So it could be starting a conversation, and it doesn't have to have all the details figured out. It just means opening the door to explore the possibilities. Okay. Um, okay. So when you're reaching out to an employer, the best way to start is by asking what their challenges and priorities are. What are they struggling with when it comes to their workforce? Retention, recruitment, attendance. These pain points are where partnerships can make the biggest difference. It's also important to be genuine. Okay, employers can tell when you're just trying to sell them something. So show that your goal is to help both the business and their employees' families, because that's the truth. That's where the partnership supports both. Frame your program as a business solution and a family support at the same time. So for the business, it's about reducing turnover, improving recruitment, and stabilizing workforce. But for families, it's about having reliable, high quality childcare. Okay, it's gonna let them focus on the work. The dual framing is what makes the partnership powerful. Okay, it's not just about childcare, it's not just about business, it's about bridging those two and creating a real solution. Okay, so workforce stability is the biggest selling point. So when you, as a childcare, that's how you're going to come. Hey, do you have work stability? Are your employees coming in all the time? Like that restaurant, right? That I saw the children at. It would have been real good to say, hey, can I talk to your manager, or even the server, to say, hey, listen, do you need childcare? I have a childcare program. I am a home childcare provider. Hey, listen, so if you need help with childcare, here's my card, right? Or talking to the manager and saying, hey, I noticed that you have a table out there with kids. I have a childcare, so if your staff need childcare, do you mind if I put my flyer in your break room, or can I give you my card? Maybe we can work something out. Simple. It doesn't have to be a concrete, like, oh, sign here, agreement. It can just start as that. Yeah, that can come later, but it can start as a simple approach. Okay. As you get into it, you can also mention, hey, did you know that there's federal tax credits? If you subsidize childcare, that can be a real bonus to you. And then in today's tight labor market, offering childcare access helps employers stand out to potential hires. So if you offer childcare, staff might want to work here. That's a real benefit, right? So just again, if these things are interested you, and Starlet, if you would like, we can definitely get somebody to work with you one-on-one, because there's a lot of opportunities here that you can use to approach a business. One, we can provide information on tax education. So some of you might have, okay, so we got Starlet. Can we put her down, Vanessa, for one-on-one coaching on partnerships? And then, so tax education, right? Letting them know, how that could impact and get the credits to the employer and yourself, right? Letting them know what the financial impact is, how guaranteed tuition affects your revenue, and then the partnership details, what this really means day to day. Okay. So, we can definitely help you on getting these details situated if you want us to for one-on-one coaching as well. Okay. All right. Any questions? Right. Well, hold your questions and we'll get to it at the end here. Let me see where we're at. Okay. All right. So just remember that a key part of building partnerships is taking the time to understand your employer's needs. This is really gonna hook that opens the conversations. Employers need to know that you're listening and that you're offering a solution that fits their situation. Okay. Um, a lot of the employers are going to have some common challenges. Again, we've talked about it. Retaining their staff, supporting parents and caregivers, offering low or no cost benefits, improving the workplace morale. Don't you feel like, if your employer is offering a place for you to put your kids, that would be great, right? So that's going to make you want to stay there. Okay. And then you want to frame your program as the way to meet those needs. Okay. You are the quality childcare. You're going to kind of toot your own horn in this case. Okay. All right. So feel free to take a screenshot of these questions, Starlet. These are the ones that I was mentioning, ways to start the conversations. So we have that for you. Everybody can screenshot this slide. As you prepare, these are the questions to help you establish your agreement, okay? All right, can I have thumbs up in the screens when everybody's good for me to move on? Okay, thank you, Erika. I think everybody's good. Okay, awesome. I saw some thumbs up. Okay, now, gotta set you up to make sure that you don't get like totally wiped out, right? You might have some objections. You might have some people say, no, it's okay, I'm good. That's okay. Okay. When employers push back, you want to have some solutions. That's why it's really good to, if you need some help with the one-on-one coaching on how to approach that, we definitely can do that. A lot of times the pushback is going to come from cost. Okay. That's going to be the biggest concern. They also might be unsure about demand, so you can suggest a pilot program. Let's start small. Let's see how it works. Um, for approval processes, like maybe it's a manager of a restaurant and they need to ask, corporate or whatever. Fine. Talk about give them the data, showing the benefits. Um, busy decision makers don't want complicated documents. So you can make them see it could be something super simple. You also want to address risk concerns by emphasizing that you're state licensed, you have comprehensive insurance coverage, and the quality certifications. I've been in business for 20 something years. I have, credentialed staff, whatever makes your quality program quality, that you're licensed, that's a big one, okay? They want to know that it's not just, that it's a legit business, right? That's why it's important. And remember, there's a handout covering the responses in more detail, or creating a handout, I'm sorry, that you can do that. So when you meet with your coach, you can work that detail of a handout out. Okay. Another great place to look for potential partners is with businesses that are physically close to you. Okay, usually within walking distance or just a short drive away. And the reason, because proximity creates convenience. Convenience is one of the biggest factors families value when it comes to childcare. Okay, local partnerships can be simpler to manage, so hours of operation are also more likely to align. Again, how we talked about. So again, infant and toddler care or non-traditional hours, those micro learning tracks can be beneficial to you. Okay, think of a small business down the street. By partnering with nearby provider, they can offer the employees the benefit. Those are the things that you want to look for. Okay, regardless of the model that you choose, it's important to capture your agreement. So there is a contracts link, and can you put that in the chat, Vanessa?
Yes.
So this is that worksheet that if you need help on establishing or tweaking it, we can definitely get that one-on-one coaching that will help you tweak this, is what I was mentioning. Okay. And this is a tool for you to use on how to get started with that. Okay. Thank you, Vanessa. Okay. So, again, they can vary in complexity and format. So just as much as a partnership themselves. So When you're drafting an agreement, there are certain pieces of information that you'll want to make sure you include the names of both the employer or employers, your childcare business, the location, including relation to employers, locations, that distance, the projected number of families or children that the employer has identified or who's in need of care. And if the employer is going to financially support the partnership, then you'll be eligible even if there's no direct financial support. You want to make sure you have that information and the start and end date of the agreement. Okay. And the start and end date are really important because if you decide it's not working out, you want an out. Okay, you want to make sure that you have a way to get out. We've also included 2 sample service agreements. Those are also there too. The link is also, we're going to put that in the chat. Okay. Got that. Vanessa's going to put that in there. And so we'll also provide that one. Okay. Before I let you go, do we have any questions? We've got a couple of minutes. So frequently asked questions, when does it end? When you can, all of that, you can use the tool. You set up all of the times that, how you want it to go, how you can work on making that agreement work for both of you. Consider including how to revisit the agreement when there is a change in leadership. You also want to if you get a new manager, you want to make sure that those things are at, so take a screenshot of this one as well. It would be really good if you could, that way you have the frequently asked questions and answers. Okay, and then let me see here. If you engage in a partnership, does the employer control the childcare business? No, not at all. It's you set what you can do. You can't have an employer tell you, hey, you have I want to send you 100 kids if you can't do that. Okay, so you determine the outcome. Okay. Yes, and then let me see here. How are disputes handled? Those are also part of the communication agreements. What types of businesses? We talked about that one. We talked about those. Talked about that. So let me see. This is also a very important part of the shared services. That we are offering through the network. We definitely want to put this out. You will see these in all of your micro learning tracks. So if you don't have this right now, look for those there. And then we do have all of your information. And then for upcoming events, you can always join us there. Please. Our next one is going to be Spanish Thursday, July 29th at 12 p.m. Okay, that's going to be the Spanish one in case you need to share that with a Spanish network provider that you know. Okay. And I think that will be our information. And let me make sure that's it. Okay. That'll be the where to get information again. We are going to get your names and set you up for coaching. And those that requested that signups. Okay. Any questions before I go about anything else? Because we're going to close out. If not, thank you so much for attending. We really appreciate it. We hope that we were beneficial to you, and we will look for you on the next one. Okay? Have a good afternoon, everyone.